Somewhere on this planet, there's a very weird student you can't see. It never stops studying and it eats as much electricity as a small country. From the outside, it's just a boring gray box with fences and no windows. Inside, it's the cafeteria and gym for that invisible student, modern AI. In this video, we'll keep it simple. Algorithms are the mind, chips are the muscles, and electricity is the food. AI is basically an overachieving student powered by all three. The real 21st century question is, who controls the mind, who owns the muscles, and who ends up stuck paying the food bill for this student? For years, AI just meant rule books humans wrote by hand. If X happens, do Y, smart but brittle and annoying to maintain. It was like that one kid trying to memorize a giant rule book for life. The moment something weird happened, they just froze. Error, no instructions. The big shift came when AI stopped memorizing rules and started spotting patterns in data, like binge-watching life and guessing what usually happens next. In school, more good textbooks make studying easier. For AI, the textbooks are images, videos, messages, code, and sensor logs. Basically, everything we upload. Cheaper storage, faster internet, smartphones everywhere. Suddenly, our invisible student had a universe of textbooks and homework to chew through. Deep learning stacked simple pattern finders into many layers, like building a virtual brain out of tiny calculator bricks. Those models have millions, then billions of tiny knobs you can tune. It's basically a giant panel of brain sliders pushed almost to max. So that's the mind, algorithms and models. But even the smartest mind is useless if it can't lift anything heavier than a pencil. That's where chips come in. If algorithms are the mind, GPUs and accelerators are the muscles. How fast and how heavy our AI student can train. CPUs are like one very smart worker, doing jobs one after another. GPUs are thousands of simpler workers chipping away at tiny pieces in parallel. Deep learning loves GPUs because each tiny calculation is simple, but there are billions of them. It's like trying to do a year of homework in one night, unless you can clone yourself. That's why GPT-class models train on thousands of GPUs. We basically built a ridiculous digital gym, just so this invisible student can keep lifting heavier and heavier math. Chips like NVIDIA's A100 turned our AI student from a casual weekend jogger into that friend who suddenly signs up for a full marathon and actually finishes. With H100 class chips and beyond, we're talking ultra-marathon territory. These are the muscles behind GPT-4 level models and whatever comes next. At this point, access to these muscles stops being a pure tech question and becomes a political one. Who is allowed to buy how many, and for what kind of AI? The US started tightening export controls on top-tier AI chips to places like China and parts of the Middle East. You could still get muscles, but maybe not the full gym. Washington also started talking about friend-shoring, keeping the muscles of AI mostly inside a trusted circle of political friends. Some regions can only buy weaker, export-safe versions, like entering the gym but being limited to cute pastel 1-kilo dumbbells. When chips decide who can train which AI, gym layouts start to look suspiciously like political maps. That's why people talk about Taiwan's chip shield. Fabs there make a huge share of the world's most advanced chips. If that supply stops, a lot of AI training suddenly doesn't happen. South Korea plays a different but crucial role: memory chips and advanced foundry capacity. It's like running both the gym and the protein storage room. The US strategy has been to weave a global web with allies. Design here, manufacture there, assemble somewhere else, and connect it all with contracts. China has been trying to build more in-house. Its own chips, its own clouds, its own AI champions. So the gym can keep running even if the global web locks a few doors. But all these muscles in Taiwan, Korea, the US, China are useless without food. For AI, food means electricity, and lots of it. Think of data centers as cafeterias for this AI student. More models mean more cafeterias and a much bigger electricity buffet. Energy agencies warn that data center power use could roughly double by 2030. Our invisible student is on track to become one of the biggest power customers on Earth. It's not just power. Cooling these cafeterias takes staggering amounts of water, sometimes in places that already worry about every drop. Data centers are the factories of the 21st century. They don't make cars or steel. They make compute for AI plus legendary air conditioning bills. Suddenly, geography matters again. Cold climates have an edge, cheap clean energy has an edge, and places that combine both start looking like prime AI real estate. And this is where the Gulf enters our story. At first glance, a desert doesn't look like the ideal place for hungry servers. But look a bit closer at the map. and the desert starts to look less like empty sand and more like a blank canvas for AI campuses. The Gulf offers two big gifts: brutal sunshine for cheap solar and a growing fleet of nuclear plants feeding steady baseload power. Add one more thing: huge flat land. For our AI student, that combo is basically sun, muscles, and endless room to grow. That's why the Gulf suddenly looks attractive. Cheap sun power, growing nuclear capacity, flexible regulations, and governments willing to move fast. Projects like Stargate in the UAE are early symbols of this shift. Huge AI data campuses in the desert, powered by gigawatts and backed by global tech alliances. They're not just selling hardware, it's cloud plus models plus chips plus networking, a full national level compute package in one shiny bundle. Saudi Arabia and Qatar are racing too, announcing new cloud regions, chip investments, and shiny AI partnerships at a dizzying pace. Behind the press releases sit sovereign wealth funds, quietly writing giant checks to turn sand into AI real estate. In the 20th century, states built ports and highways. Now some are building AI cafeterias, data centers, and cables as core national infrastructure. For Washington, putting AI gyms in friendly deserts is a way to keep top chips inside a political comfort zone, close to allies, far from rivals. But there are risks. Export rules can change, conflicts can flare, and betting too hard on any one region ties your AI meal plan to someone else's politics. There's also a climate question. How much extra compute do we want if it comes with huge power and water footprints in fragile environments? Put this together and you get a new kind of border. Not just lines on a paper map, but lines of who gets which chips and where AI cafeterias are allowed to run. That's why people obsess over Taiwan. Not only is it squeezed between the US and China militarily, it also holds a huge piece of the chip muscle behind advanced AI. Japan and parts of Europe bring a crucial pieces too: equipment, materials, and research talent. They're the friends without whom the gym can't buy new machines. South Korea sits in a tricky spot, deeply tied into the US-led chip ecosystem, geographically close to China, and now central to many AI infrastructure plans. Zoom out and the Indo-Pacific looks like a chip web. Taiwan's fabs, Korea's memory and foundries, Japan's materials plus US design and money. China is building its own version of that web inside its borders, its own fabs, clouds, and AI firms, hoping it can keep training even if the global gym locks some doors. Meanwhile, countries in the global south are being courted by both sides, offered data centers, undersea cables, and tempting cloud deals. The fear is waking up one day and realizing you got the cables and the buildings, but not the control over the models, the data, or the rules. No one wants to be just the landlord and the power plug while someone else walks away with the models, the profits, and the decisions. That's why you hear phrases like digital sovereignty and data localization. Governments trying to make sure that if the AI cafeteria is on their soil, they get some say over the menu. There's a shadow side too. The same infrastructure that powers AI can power surveillance. Hosting the gym can also mean hosting the cameras and logs that watch people. In the Gulf, that means balancing AI prestige and investment with tough questions about privacy, rights, and power at home. In Europe, the instinct is to write rules: how to get AI's benefits without frying the grid, draining rivers, or handing data to whoever shows up with the biggest GPU order. So every AI infrastructure deal, whether in the Gulf, East Asia, or the Global South, ultimately comes down to one thing: bargaining power. The key question is, who can say no? Who can walk away from a bad deal? And who is so desperate they can't risk refusing anything at all? Some countries hope to win big by hosting the mind, the muscles, or the food of AI. Others quietly worry they'll just be the landlord and power plug. Up to now, we've mostly talked about states and companies. But all of this reshapes the world that ordinary people will actually live in. For most of us, AI just shows up as a button. Enhance, summarize, write for me. Tap. Wait a second. Done. No GPUs, no deserts in sight. That's why it feels like magic. But behind that one tap is a chain of chips in one country, data centers in another, and power plants in a third. Most of us see the fun part: new features, flashy demos, stock charts going, but not the power lines, water pipes, and export rules underneath. That gap creates a risk. We get hyped about AI apps, but skip the homework on who controls the muscles, who pays for the food, and who absorbs the side effects. The scary version of this story is a few governments and corporations quietly drawing the map while everyone else just adapts. A healthier version needs debate. You and I can't personally rewrite the chip supply chain from our couch. But we can stop pretending AI fell from the sky with zero costs and zero politics. The next step is asking better questions. Not just what can this app do for me, but who built it, where does it run, and what kind of world is it training us for? We can also nudge from below what tools we choose at work, which companies we support, and how loudly we push back when AI is used in creepy, not helpful ways. Inside companies, engineers, designers, and policy teams have levers too. The people building the muscles and kitchens of AI can push for guardrails or look the other way. Over the next decade, three curves will race: how fast AI improves, how fast chips and data centers spread, and how fast our politics and ethics catch up. Right now, the mind and the muscles are sprinting. The rules about how they should behave are still at the starting line, busy tying their shoelaces. Depending on which curve wins, we could end up with widely shared accountable AI, or a few fortified AI islands staring at each other over digital modes. To see how real all this is, let's zoom into one city where these webs cross: Seoul, where chip factories, AI labs, and global CEOs keep bumping into each other. In Korea, some of the most honest conversations don't happen at summits. They happen over fried chicken and beer, chimak, after the PowerPoint boss fight is finally over. So it almost felt normal when the heads of Nvidia, Samsung, and Hyundai reportedly ended up at the same chicken table. Three billionaires, one mountain of fried chicken. News apps lit up. Half the country was basically smashing refresh like it was a World Cup match, waiting to hear what this chicken meeting meant. People joked and made memes about it. But under the reaction gifs was a serious question. Who will power, supply, and steer the muscles of AI for the next decade? At that one table, you basically had the muscle supplier, the memory giant, and a mobility powerhouse. Plus Korea, the country quietly hosting key pieces of the chip and AI puzzle. The biggest deals don't always start in official halls. Sometimes they start with a cheers, a bad joke about spicy sauce, and someone saying, "Okay, what if we did something crazy together?" So who actually wins in a world where AI gyms and cafeterias sit in just a handful of countries? And who quietly worries they'll only be the landlord or the power plug? Every time you tap an AI button, you're plugging into all of this. Chips in one place, data centers in another, power plants in a third, and politics tying it together. Multiply that by billions of taps and you get the scale. A global gym and cafeteria working hard so your girlfriend's selfie can look maybe 2% less cursed. It's funny, but also not. Our personal apps rest on top of wires, laws, and deals that millions of other people had no say in. And so the question isn't AI good or bad. It's closer to, are we okay with a few AI kitchens feeding the whole planet? And if not, what are we going to do about it? You don't have to be an export law or chip design expert, but you can at least stop treating AI as magic and start seeing the wires behind it. You also get to join the debate, not just AI good or bad, but what kind of world you want this electricity-eating student to help build. That's what this channel is for? Not worshiping or hating AI, but using it as an excuse to talk about power, justice, and the future we actually want. Next time you see news about AI chips, new data centers, or mysterious chicken meetings, remember, that's not just tech gossip. That's the map of the world your future will live in. You don't have to be optimistic or pessimistic about AI. Just stay curious instead of only cynical, and keep asking who's feeding this student and who gets a seat in the cafeteria. You might not control where the data centers get built, but you do control how you think, talk, and vote about the world they create, Monu.